Years ago when I was first starting out doing embroidery, I did an embroidery by Who's Barn Biking. It was the large Christmas tree. And it had a lot of ornaments on it and a string of lights.
Yeah.
I foolishly used cutaway and then a layer of batting and then cotton. When it stitched out, it pulled the entire inner design away from the outer edge
Mm-hmm.
of the design. Did
Yeah.
I, because of the thickness of what I was embroidering it onto once I added the batting, should I have added compensation to accommodate that?
Well, what you really should have probably added was more underlay,
Okay.
because think of it like this. The ideal thing to embroider that Christmas tree out on would have been a piece of balsa wood.
Oh,
And there are people who have embroidered on balsa wood.
well, I have done balsa wood
Yeah.
before.
Now
And
why is balsa wood so good? Because it has zero stretch.
right.
And all
But you have to
your,
pick the right design.
yeah, all your stitch file is with this graphic we have here. This reminds you of your high school algebra days when you had to graph an equation on here, you know, and
Right.
this was 0.00, and
Yeah.
this was 0.10, one positive on the x-axis and 0 on the
Mhm.
y, and this was point coordinate 1, 1. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's what's in the stitch file.
Ah.
That's why your needle always plunges right in here to make sure it's at the origin. And then if it says like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is to make a Christmas tree, I'm going to go from here down to here. So the hoop moves says that I'm down here. And then I stitch in, stitch, 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 stitch for this. And then
Mhm.
stitch, 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 stitch. And all these coordinates,
Mhm.
okay, this is all that's in the stitch file. And then it
Right.
reaches a point where it says, okay, stop. I want you to change thread colors to medium green. And when you're ready, say go. And then the hoop moves and the needle comes up maybe to here and it starts stitching like this, a satiny, stitch to fill in the tree. And then it gets to a point like that and it says, okay, stop, move the hoop down here and let me stitch down here. I mean, I'm sure anyone who's done any embroidery
Yes.
sees how this fills like this. And the reason it does that is to prevent puckering and a whole number of other things based on the density and the amount of underlay under here. So if you find that this isn't enough underlay, then what you might have to do is bring your design in, bring it into modify, unstitch everything until you have only the underlay, save just the underlay part, and then put the two designs in so you have double underlay underneath of it.
Oh,
Okay? So the
I
first
didn't
thing
know that.
you'll do is stitch out just the underlay, and then software will say, okay, I'm done with that design. Now let me go back in. Oh, the first thing I have to do is just do the underlay. So I'll do the underlay again, and then I'll start doing the top decorative stitches.
I will have to try that.
Yeah, and that's something, again, this is why you must master modify. People think modify is nothing, but it's one of the most important modules in your software.
I don't use that, I have to admit.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to become a master of modify. And I have all the modify lessons out there in my, step-by-step. Train your way
Okay.
step-by-step.
I'll look into that.
Okay? Any other questions?
One, just a little one in connection with this. So if you're doing a dense design, that's what you would do rather than adding a heavier stabilizer.
Well, stabilizers can only hold so much stitches. 20,000 stitches is good for one layer of stabilizer. And what you should do with stabilizer is this. I want to stabilize this hoop, and it has a fairly heavy design that I'm going to put in here. I'll bet you that most of you put your stabilizer like this. Is there anybody that doesn't put the stabilizer like that?
I have floated some.
Here's what you want to do.
Okay. Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
Because the stabilizer has a grain to it like wood. Take a piece of stabilizer and try to just tear it straight across here. And then take a piece and try and tear it this way. Okay? The grain runs this way. Say this is the roll of stabilizer here. Okay, the grain runs the length of the stabilizer. So to be sure, don't scrimp on the stabilizer. Put two pieces in there. Okay, stabilizer's really cheap. Okay, and I mean, because we buy it at the quilt shows we go to and the sewing shows. And so I'll buy a roll of stabilizer that's 18 inches in diameter. And I don't ever worry about it. And I don't do anything stupid like use paper towels for stabilizers.
Oh.
Because paper towels are made of wood, and wood will dull the needles very fast. Okay? So no, you don't use coffee filters or paper towels or anything but stabilizer. And they're only limited to about 20,000 stitches per design. So if this were a large hoop, a very large hoop, I would go ahead and put the stabilizers. I'd put them this way and this way. I wouldn't overlap them that much, this way. And then I put one this way and this way. If I was doing something like the 360 by 350, hoop, I'd make sure there are two layers of stabilizer everywhere in here. Okay, and then the other thing is, I don't care what it's called. If it's called tear away light, tear away heavy, tear away medium, never tear away stabilizer. All it does is creates tension, unwarranted tension in your design, okay? Treat all stabilizer like it's cut away. And after you wash your project a few times, the stabilizer will just fall apart and it'll disappear. But do not tear away stabilizer.
Okay, what is your opinion on wash away?
Wash away is okay. What I like to use though is fusible mesh for something like a t-shirt, which has a lot of stretch to it. Mm-hmm. Fusible mesh that, I can cut around after, the design is embroidered on it. But there's a really nice, here on the website, let me see, let me see. Where is it? There it is. Okay, this is the Floriani Stabilizer Quick Reference Guide. It's only a 2-page document. This is invaluable guidance for the use of stabilizers. And you should write this down, Floriani Stabilizer Quick Reference Guide. Now, of course, it tries to sell all of their stabilizer, but if you go into Joann's store or your favorite local dealer, if they don't have Floriani, just say, do you have anything like this Floriani Heat and Stay Tear Away? Okay. And they'll say, oh yeah, we've got it right here. It's so-and-so. So you want this. You also want the stabilizer workbook. And this is 32 pages long. And this goes in to each one, and it's a PDF. So you can go down here and you can say, what is this? Oh, wet and gone fusible. Wait, let me click on this. Oh, it goes right to that part. Says this is what it's for. Here's what you need to use it for. Here's how to use it. Okay. Here's some more about it. This is invaluable and something you should print out, download and print out and take with you when you go shopping. And they have a whole bunch of different kinds of stabilizer, but I guarantee if you show this to your dealer, they'll look at it and they'll say, oh, we have the same thing, only we call it this. We call it wash away instead of stitch and wash. We just call it, Inspire a wash away. But it's the same thing. And then you can even click here and say, well, let me see, is it, let's compare it to what this says here. Okay, easy to remove from around delicate embroidery or machine stitching. Yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Eliminates countless hours of picking out stabilizer remnants, or we call them Klingons. Okay, so that's what you want, these two documents.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and they're free. Just download them.
Cool.
So, okay, so that was worth the price of admission to this webinar just to get those two. Or I guess I shouldn't say that because it costs nothing to come to this webinar.
It has been worth the time.
Think it's been worth your time? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're pretty much at the end point. I'm going to stop the recording now.